Let me just start, Amber, you first. Just your general view of forget the media coverage, just the facts on the ground in Boulder. Just how do you feel about what happened as a signal event in America's history or in the current moment?
God, it's so disturbing, especially in concert with just a few weeks ago, the assassination of the Israeli diplomat and the embassy staffer in Washington, D.C. In this case, you have, again, another guy who engaged in a targeted killing. He had apparently been planning this attack for quite some time, knew that these pro-Israel protesters gathered every Sunday in Boulder for their walk or their march, whatever you want to call it, and had employed some kind of homemade flamethrower device, as well as 14 Molotov cocktails they found in his car. And the images of these elderly individuals, all of the victims were over the age of 55, just in the fetal position on the ground. The descriptions from bystanders is so beyond horrific. And also the fact that this guy had overstayed a visa that was granted to him during the Biden administration. He was given a work permit even after overstaying his visa, which he also overstayed. So I think obviously the Trump administration has a lot of fodder from this, both on the deportations of some student visa holders, as well as the mass deportation, getting rid of anybody who is in the country illegally. This guy hit like two birds with one stone, essentially, with everything that the Trump administration has been saying in terms of deriding the left's policies.
Adam, general
Yeah,
thoughts.
Amber is very correct about the repeated pattern of anti-Semitism manifesting all throughout America. It could be a function of a lot of things. I don't know what the case is with Solomon, but I think algorithms are right now perpetuating a lot of anti-Semitism. We're seeing uniquely impressionable and easily radicalized people going out in the streets and doing these things over and over. Like Aaron Bushnell, remember him a few years back? I feel like since then we've seen a lot of in-person events in the United States. And I'm not going to say that I think our enemies benefit a lot when they can stoke fear and anger in our algorithms and have stuff like this manifest. He did enter in 2022 on a B2 visa, and then his work permit expired in March. The Trump admin did not deport him, but Trump still came out immediately with a post saying he came in through Biden's open borders, which is a weird, tricky way to say he actually had a visa, right? And Trump did the same thing when there was a New Orleans attack on January 1st. Someone ran through a parade. And I think within hours, Trump tweeted out, this was an illegal person who came over the border. That wasn't even true in that case either. So Trump immediately tries to divert blame and weaponize it when I think overall there's a conversation about anti-Semitism that's more important here than whether Biden caused it.
Just Adam, just to be clear, go through the facts as you understand them again about his immigration status and the timing.
From my understanding, he entered on a visa in 2022. That expired, and then he got a work permit, which also expired in March, late March of this year, March 28th of this year. And then from then, he's been illegal. He's been here illegally. And the Trump mass deportation raid didn't catch him, despite the government having them on his records, having him on the records.
Right, but by that chronology, and that matches vaguely with what I've read, but I haven't done any reporting of mine. By that chronology, both administrations would be responsible for his presence here, correct?
No, I was trying to say I don't think either. I mean, I think the more important conversation is about anti-Semitism.
No, I
I just think
understand. I
Trump has
understand.
this repeated pattern as well of immediately diverting responsibility either on Biden or the last admin when neither in New Orleans. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I
When he did
do.
this in
I
New
do.
Orleans?
I
And then
do.
he did the same thing today. Is it fair for Trump to say this was like an open border Biden? I was just responding to Trump's criticism of Biden.
Understood. Amber, is it fair for President Trump to say this is a Biden problem?
Well, if the guy is overstaying a visa and then you respond not by removing him, but by giving him permission to work here, that seems pretty directly responsible to me.
Why
Adam?
didn't Trump remove him though, if he was on the government's radar?
He should remove him, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that Stephen Miller has been saying that they need to ramp up the pace of the mass deportation program.
Yeah. I mean, Adam, I take your point, and it's a good one. If you ask the Trump administration, they would say there are lots of people here who they'd like to remove. They just haven't found them all yet.
Right.
So here's Caroline Levitt today, number 3, talking about her view of who's to blame for this.
What's the White House's perspective on this? Well, FBI Director Kash Patel is absolutely right. And the president just put out a very strong statement condemning this attack. This terrorist came into our country under the previous administration. Joe Biden's administration foolishly gave him a tourist visa and that allowed him to unlawfully remain in our country. This individual should have been deported. Instead, he was welcomed here. And now, 3 years later, after coming to this country under Joe Biden's administration, he is lighting Jewish people on fire who were simply trying to peacefully pay respect to the hostages in Israel. This absolutely is an act of targeted terrorism. The FBI and the Department of Justice are investigating it as such, and the president is going to ensure that this individual is held to the fullest extent of the law. And not just this individual, but any individual, especially illegal criminals who engage in acts of terrorism, will be held accountable under this president.
Adam, did she say anything you disagree with or question?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit late to hold him accountable. I mean, yeah, you can now, but it's just she's being performatively angry because they failed to deport someone and it looks bad, like Amber said. I mean, it goes against what they're saying. Here's the thing. I think it's really fun and easy to play the blame game and say like, oh, Caroline Leavitt is wrong about it being Biden. It's actually Trump's fault. But overall, there's like a deeper problem with anti-Semitism that is bubbling up beyond which administration is in power.
True. Amber.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I
They're
think they're both problems, though.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
they're both legitimate problems.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just go back to the Biden administration, letting in 100 people who were on a terror watch list. I mean, how many people like this guy who weren't on the terror watch list, but maybe hold terroristic sentiments or could become radicalized or who have violent tendencies, have been allowed that we don't know about, right? This guy wasn't on the watch list, but was still let in through this visa program, overstayed it. And I think, if anything, Adam, your point about the Trump administration not deporting him between March and June when he committed this attack would actually bolster the administration's desire to deport criminals more rapidly.
Amber,
I think that they should be more surgical when they're deporting these criminals. I mean, we've seen a lot of resources spent on targeting people with student visas and then doing this weird flip-flop game where then now they're actually like following what the courts are saying and allowing the student visas to be granted. And then now they're attacking Harvard. They could allocate these resources maybe towards being more surgical and not deporting people with no due process, playing this weird game with habeas petitions. We could talk about Abrego Garcia, but I mean, yeah, I mean, if the Trump admin wanted to deport this guy, I don't think we would throw up a fight unless it was without due process, which he seems to be doing. But yeah, if he wants to surgically deport people, sure.
Well, the student visa process is done through the State Department, and deportations are at the behest of DHS and DOJ. So those are two separate groups of resources that you're talking about.
I understand.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand that like it's two separate resources, but I think that Trump is doing a lot of performative stuff, and now he knows that this looks bad on the admin. I mean, wasn't there a whole ICE raid with Dr. Phil? Why didn't Dr. Phil catch this guy? If Trump is doing all these like performative televised crackdowns. Yeah.
If we're talking about your assertion that anti-Semitism is the deeper problem, though, then why do you have the issue with getting rid of radical students on campus who don't have any right to be studying in the US? It's a privilege. And if they abuse that right, or that privilege rather, then send them home. You can't be here supporting a terrorist group.
Didn't the Trump admin end up going back and end up like giving them their visas back?
They're complying with the courts, which I assume is what you would like.
Okay,
right?
so if the
because
Trump
of
admin,
separation of powers,
if the Trump admin proved that there were repeated anti-Semitic like actions coming out of these students, why were the visas given back by the courts?
Well, the courts didn't rule on the whether or not the students were anti-Semitic. They said that the Trump administration didn't have a right to do it, which I obviously disagree with, and the Trump administration is appealing that decision.
What proof was there that the students were anti-Semitic?
Well, that'd be a case-by-case thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so Trump en masse violating the due process clause strips all of these student visas away, and you're just going to say that now it's a case-by-case basis. I don't know. It's just like,
is there? He didn't violate their due process.
You make a good point. I mean, Adam, as you know, there's a general view now raised by the circumstances that have come before us that a lot of Americans say people don't have a right to study in the United States. If they're not American citizens, they're here on student visas, those can be revoked. I'm not saying that's my position, but there's a lot of people in the country who feel that, including the Secretary of State, put up number 4, please, who believe that they have the absolute right to revoke student visas whenever they want without due process or rigorous fact finding. Marco Rubio, in light of yesterday's horrific attack, all terrorists, their family members, and terrorist sympathizers here on a visa should know under the Trump administration, we will find you, revoke your visa, and deport you. And that's one standard for terrorist sympathizers. But I think they're defining it broadly. Anyone who speaks favorably about Hamas, I think this administration would say we can deport you if you're here on a student visa or some other temporary basis. I want to ask both of you a question that you may find difficult or not, but I want to press you both on separate points, and then we'll move on to something else. Amber, would it be better for America if Donald Trump didn't use occasions like this to divide? Would it be preferable to you if he used this as an occasion to inspire and unite the country rather than divide?
I actually think it's really important to call out problems when we see them, and willful ignorance or blindness to the policies that have gotten us into these situations doesn't help anybody.
But isn't it possible to do both? Can't you put a spotlight on it, but also try to ask us to speak to our better angels and rather than just attack the libs? Or
Well,
no?
I thought his initial statement was fine, and the White House statement did that.
All right. I didn't
Is there
see
any
that,
example of
maybe.
Trump ever having like self-reflection after an event like this, or does he always just attack Biden?
What
feel like it's-
self-reflection is he supposed to do here?
It's always attack mode. Didn't you
Well-
say that some onus falls on the Trump admin?
No,
Oh, you think none falls on the Trump admin with this?
no, I do
For
not.
not deporting him after his work permit expired?
Well, again, they would say there's just too many to get everybody out.
Right.
But
There's 20 million here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't fault them for not
Um,
happening to catch this guy before he decided to wield a flamethrower on elderly people.
Like what you see? Why don't you subscribe? This is a great opportunity to be part of unique conversations. Just hit the subscribe button. And if you want to watch our events live, go to twoway.tv.